Welcome to this episode of Preaching the Word, a video series on preaching sponsored by the Dunk Tank and the Berman Ministry Center. My name is Dr. Stephen Reasor, and I'm a preacher and author, and I teach preaching at Berman University in Lacombe, Alberta. In this episode, we continue looking at different dynamic sermon structures. Specifically, an interesting take on the problem-to-solution form called the 4-page sermon, developed by Paul Scott Wilson. In his book, The 4 Pages of the Sermon, Wilson divides the sermon into 4 moves. 1 is the problem present in the text, the sin problem really. 2 is the sin problem present in the lives of the audience. 3, the gospel's solution to the problem in the text. And 4, the gospel's solution to the problem in the lives of the audience. Now, to be fair to the title, the 4 pages of the sermon is not really accurate if you are writing a manuscript. The font would have to be very tiny to fit each move in 1 page, but you get the idea. I like this sermon structure because it takes seriously the Bible text and its context and the current world of the preacher and the congregation. Wilson argues that different variations on his 4-move sermon are effective. You can deal with the problems first, the problems in the text and in the present time, and then explore the solutions in the text and in the present time. For my sermon on Luke 17, my first 2 moves would deal with the problems first. So the problem in the text would be the disciples' worry that they are not righteous enough to fulfill Jesus' expectations. The present problem, we are less righteous than the disciples, and we can't fulfill Jesus' expectations either. The last 2 moves then would deal with the solutions. The solution in the text is the master-servant dynamic displays the appropriate relationship between grace, faith, and works. And the present solution, we must learn to view Jesus as Lord as well as Savior. Another way of arranging the 4-page sermon is to address the problem and the solution in the text in the first 2 moves. So the problem in the text, the disciples worry that they're not righteous enough to fulfill Jesus' expectations. And the solution, the master-servant dynamic displays the appropriate relationship between grace, faith, and works. Then the last 2 moves would deal with the problem and solution in the present setting. Our present problem is we are less righteous than the disciples and can't fulfill Jesus' expectations. Our present solution is we must learn to view Jesus as Lord as well as Savior. A third way of arranging the sermon would be to look at the present problem in the first move, then the problem in the text, the solution in the text, and finish with the solution in the present context. What all these forms have in common are that they begin with a problem and they finish with the present solution. That is another thing that I like about this sermon form. You can vary it to fit your specific context. Your assignment for this episode is to consider how you might shape a sermon that you are currently working on to fit the 4 moves of the 4-page sermon. Outline the parts of the story and how you will structure your sermon. Once you have outlined the 4 moves, try rearranging it like I did in this video and see which of the arrangements you like best. When you've finished your assignment, join me for the next episode of Preaching the Word, where we will explore the next dynamic structure, the relational sermon. Until then, keep preaching the Word.